Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this Thursday edition of the Lombardi Line presented by DraftKings alongside former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. I'm Stormy Bonantoni. A jam-packed final hour ahead. So excited to break down all things schedule release with NFL insider Albert Breer, who's going to join us coming up in 15 minutes. Matt Euman's on the program as well, one of our sharper NFL bettors here at VSiN. He is also dialed in on the PGA. Xander Schauffele shooting 9 under in his first round today at Valhalla. We'll see how Matt wants to approach the in-round angles of the tournament and a whole lot more later. But Michael, the schedule release comes out last night. Everybody is excited, and I know you were too.
You can't not be excited. I mean, because we're close to getting there, right? And you could start breaking down the teams, and for teams, you can start working on your opponent, right? You know who you're opening up with. You know the first 3 games. I don't look past much to the second half of the schedule because injuries play such an important role. But you kind of have a sense of what you need to do in training camp to get ready for week 1 and go from there. So it's like we're moving, and now we're in that love period where everybody's having great camps. Caleb Williams didn't have an incomplete pass yesterday. I don't know if you heard that, Stormy, but the ball didn't touch the ground. So everybody's excited, and I kept saying to myself, who's the worst team? And who is going to have the number 1 pick? The Panthers are not favored in any game all year, so they obviously are. The Raiders have, whether their quarterback situation can come through. The Giants are only a half a point favorite over in Munich against the Panthers, so that tells you what the book thinks of them. So it'll be fun to look at. And then I heard you were commenting on the Giant uniforms during the break. You didn't like those, huh?
Yeah, I liked them less than Mike Tomlin likes the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule on the back end. Yeah, those things are bad, Michael. We can't deny that. I know it's the 100th anniversary team, and they're doing some special stuff around it. That uniform ain't it, though, is it? They look like they're wearing khaki pants paired with a bad rugby look. That's kind of the vibe I was getting.
Yeah, the bad rugby look never works, right? It's like, can't we dress up the old-time uniforms a little bit? Can't we?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, things ultimately were modernized for a reason. So I love paying homage. I love all of that. But, we did move on with a certain goal and aesthetic in mind. There are, though, for as bad as those uniforms are, there are a lot of great games that are ahead on the schedule this year. And one of them I am particularly looking forward to and dreading, and it is the rematch of this past year's Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers hosting the Kansas City Chiefs on October 20th. It's a game that I'm certainly going to have circled on my calendar and feel sick to my stomach approaching. San Francisco's a 2-point favorite in that game, though, which to me told me that odds makers, Michael, see this game as essentially a pick-em because, home field isn't 3 points anymore. It's really closer to 2, maybe even 1.5 at times. So these two teams are Super Bowl contenders again, could be in that position again, and odds makers see them as very equal.
Yeah, and look, Kansas City gets a huge break, right? Kansas City has a bye before they have to come to San Francisco, which gets them healthier, gets them ready to go. So that's a huge break. We know Andy Reid. We'll hear about it all week in October about how Andy Reid coming off a bye is so good. But look, I think the Niners, are taking their time this offseason. They're not in a rush. I think both the Niners and the Chiefs have spent so much time playing extra games, OTAs, all that. I think they're working on a gradual pace, but I think there's some teams, Stormy, that have to start fast. And you mentioned it earlier in the first hour. The AFC North, Pittsburgh schedule is really tough the second half. But the whole AFC North is hard. Like, every team's good there. I don't know if you catch a lucky break.
Yeah, that division is absolutely going to be a gauntlet, Michael. But to stay on the 49ers here briefly, because you did mention that bye week for the Kansas City Chiefs going into that game, that's a stretch for San Francisco where the rest advantage disadvantage is favoring the opposing team in a handful of them from week 7 to week 13. So you start with the Chiefs, then you have the Cowboys who are also going to be coming off of a bye. The 49ers then get their bye. Right. They play the Bucs in week 10. Seahawks, who will be coming off a bye, and they're never an easy out, at the Packers, and then at the Bills, who will be coming off of a bye. So that's going to be a challenge for this team, no doubt.
No question. They're going to, and look, they're the hunted one. Everybody knows on the schedule, we got to play the Niners, and they're really good. We got to play Kyle Shanahan's offense. They're really good. So they're not going to get anybody's C- game. Every game, like last year when they went back to Cleveland, it was their Super Bowl. It was their ability to declare they're a good team. When you beat San Francisco, now you move into a class that you're a good team.
Let's continue going through some of these schedule release highlights. The Baltimore Ravens, you talk about the North. They're a 2-point favorite at the Chargers in November. Hard Bowl, Week 12 at SoFi Stadium. We'll also have Kirk Cousins in Minnesota taking on the team that let him walk. Atlanta, a 1-point favorite. They're indoors, which Kirk we know loves. The Pittsburgh Steelers, a 3-point favorite in Denver as Russell Wilson gets to face Sean Payton. And also, how about Sean Payton making his return to New Orleans in October, Thursday Night Football on Amazon. So a lot of good games on the slate in primetime and otherwise.
I thought there were a lot of good games. I think that the schedule on the national games, I thought they were great. And look, if you're a good team, you got to beat somebody, right? And so, like Baltimore, they open up. I mean, Baltimore gets it. Baltimore gets, to start their season, they have to, they got to go out and play Kansas City. They come back and they got the Raiders at home. They got the Cowboys and Buffalo, Cincinnati. I mean, and then they get Washington. That's a tough schedule, but they're a good team. I mean, you're not, they're number one seed last year. You're not going to get a walk in the park. But I think what you want to look at is the end of the year, right? They have a late bye, which you always want, especially after playing the Eagles. Get the Giants. You should be able to win that game. You got the Steelers. That'll be always a hard game. Texans on Christmas Day, and you end the season with the Browns. So, you got a chance to build a little momentum going into it. But, look, there's going to take some time. I think one of the things is us as bettors, Baltimore, new defense coordinator Zach Orr. He's taken over from McDonald. That's a tough job, right? Derrick Henry going to be more under center because he needs to get the ball from the quarterback from under center. So there's a lot of new offensive line for Baltimore, a lot of moving pieces here. It's going to be an interesting summer to watch them if they can just pick up where they left off last year.
Yeah, 13 wins a season ago. Win total this year, 11.5, plus 115 to the over. And you're getting that plus money because of the difficulty of the schedule that you just laid out there, Michael. And for as good as a job as Mike North and everybody at the NFL and the broadcasting situation, as good a job as they did, Michael, I do have one bone to pick with the league. And
okay,
you know that I am a college football sideline reporter for ESPN. I love the sport. I am so angry, and I know why they had to do it, but it doesn't change anything for me about how upset I am about that Saturday doubleheader we're going to get, which are good games in the NFL. It's Houston and Kansas City and Pittsburgh and Baltimore on December 21st. That is also the first time under the new college football playoff layout that we're going to have on-campus games for the CFP. And you're going head-to-head with college football, and you're going to win that battle. You know you are. Why are you taking this away from the I hate that. I don't want to have to be separated, pulled in different directions. Leave my college football Saturdays alone. You can play on every other day of the week. I don't care. Sunday, Monday, throw a Tuesday in there and take it away from the MAC. I don't care. Don't take away my college football Saturday with the CFP. I am so upset about this.
Yeah, I can understand it because, we're hoping they're good games, but I would have my sense, correct me if I'm wrong, is it will not be the first 4 teams. It'll be 5 playing 12, correct?
There's going to be 3 different games that are on that day. 3 different CFP
but they're
games.
going to be none of the top teams will be playing on that day.
Oh, correct. Yes,
so
there's first
the
round
Georgia,
buys. Yes,
that's my point. So they may not be great games because I think for everybody who wanted more teams into the playoffs, we're going to find out maybe more teams isn't the right thing. Maybe more teams isn't going to. Maybe there aren't enough good teams. So I think. Look, you're right. But we're running out of days. We're running out of. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, you can't do it. You got Saturday and Sunday, and the NFL would say, well, we've always had Saturday late in December.
I know. It just breaks my heart. And this is a direct relation because we're playing on Wednesday for those Christmas games, and those are the teams that they're moving forward and having them play on Saturday and then have to play on Wednesday. So it's still a short week for them, but it's different. And it just bummed me out. I love college football. I want to be able to watch them separately.
I do too.
So It is what it is. But
but let's be clear. I love college football. I'll watch it. But if it's an NFL game, I'm going to watch the best game on. I'm going to watch the best game that they have. I have a feeling it'll be the pro game because they'll be good games.
Also, what else is interesting is we're, talking about that week in December and those Christmas games because they're both going to be broadcast on Netflix. What a masterful job that is. As if the NFL already wasn't going to be king on that day over the NBA. We saw last year the epic success that they had playing on Christmas. Now you have those games played in an app that are going to make it extremely difficult for anybody trying to change out of that to watch the NBA games. So people aren't going to, unless you've got the multi-TV set up. You're watching the NFL, right. You're kicking your feet up watching Netflix.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no that getting out of the app to go to the regular. So you have to have two TVs. It's almost mandatory that you have to have two TVs to really conquer this. So that's what we'll have. We'll have two TVs. I'll bring the outdoor TV in the winter. I'll put that up there and I'll have it set up, and then I'll be yelled at because the living room looks like crap and somebody needs to change it. So you know how that goes. I can't have a man cave. I know that. Here's my man cave's right here, Stormy, and I have no TVs in here.
Listen, you got to give Millie her props, okay? She puts up with you during football season, so give her that.
Yeah, well, right, yeah, and through the other 11 months, whatever 6 months too that it isn't football season, she has to put up with it too. But yeah, I didn't think about that app thing. That is interesting because you got to go from Netflix over, and if you don't have a smart TV like Barbershop, my father, there's no chance he's doing that. Zero.
You're not changing the channel. It's like going back to the old days when you didn't have a remote control and you'd have to get up and go physically change the channel. Sometimes you're just lazy. You don't want to do that. We're gonna hit the break.
You don't even remember those days. You don't even remember those days.
I can imagine. We'll be right back. Albert Breer joining us next.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the sports betting network.
For a limited time, we here at VSiN are offering our annual subscription at a ridiculous rate. Usually it's $240. You can grab the subscription now for just $199. And when you sign up today, you're also getting an extra 2 months free. So 14 months of VSiN Pro access for less than 50 cents a day. But you need to use our promo code Lombardi with VSiN Pro. That'll get you instant access to our daily best bets with a leaderboard to see who has the best win percentage and ROI. 19 hours of live programming each and every day, including expert breakdowns and in-game analysis. Proven betting systems from professional handicappers, as well as our exclusive betting splits to show you where the money and bets are moving. Visit VSiN.com/subscribe today to claim your 14 months of VSiN Pro for $199. Use that promo code again, Lombardi. This is the Lombardi Line alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Buonantony with you. And we'll continue our NFL schedule release talk with Albert Breer, who joins us now on the Progressive Guest Line, senior NFL reporter, insider, MMQB. And we talked about it off the top of the show, Albert, that nothing is like better evidence for how the NFL is king than a day like yesterday where you've got the NBA and NHL postseason going on, yet everybody's talking about the NFL schedule release for games we already knew were going to be played. We just didn't know when.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. I mean, I can remember when this first started and I was NFL Network sent me to a bar in Chicago, and this is probably like 2015 or so. And Michael's probably familiar with some of these assignments, but I got sent to this bar in Chicago, and it just happened to be on the same night the Blackhawks and the Bulls were playing in the playoffs on the same night. And so we literally had to ask them to change one of the TVs over to the schedule release because there's no way it was going to be on any of the TVs there. And almost had to like generate like this like feeling that someone in the bar cared. So, certainly it's come a long way in a short time. And I mean, I like it's just another piece of evidence that America can't get enough football.
Not enough. I mean, look, we're going to send them Carolina and the New York Giants, and the Germans will love it more than anything in the world. It'll be amazing, right? I mean, we couldn't send two worst quarterbacks over there in the league, but they're going to eat it all up. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, my favorite subject, that Super Bowl winning franchise, the Atlanta Falcons down there. What have you heard since the pick's been made? there's been a lot of conversation about how Arthur Blank wanted Cousins and Super Bowl winning GM Fontenot wanted to draft Penix. What have you heard?
You know, what I've heard, Michael, is a lot of buzz terms from Home Depot being thrown around. And the main one that kind of, rings true when you look at, what they've done over the last 3 months is succession plan. They talked a lot about succession plans in that organization over the last couple of months. And, I think a big piece of their quarterback plan was making sure that they weren't going to be left empty-handed in any sort of way. And so, look, I think part of it's the PTSD that the owner has over the way the last 3 years went. They offloaded Matt Ryan a year before they wanted to because of the Deshaun Watson situation. Then they try to tread water for a year with Marcus Mariota. That doesn't work. They try to tread water for a year with Desmond Ridder. That doesn't work. And so I think, Fontenot and Raheem Morris went into the offseason with this mandate to get the quarterback position right. And, they've obviously gone over the top in doing it. I think it's totally fair to be critical of the way this was handled. And my reporting has shown that, like Kirk Cousins, one of the reasons that he left the Vikings in the first place, because they were very upfront with him about what they were going to do. And they would not rule out the idea that even if he stayed, that they would draft the quarterback of the future, in 2024. It's part of the reason why he didn't sign an extension there in 2023, and it's part of the reason why he chose Atlanta over Minnesota when he was out there in free agency. And he thought the guaranteed money protected him, but obviously things went the other way. With a number of different things happening over the course of the spring, but obviously I liked Penix quite a bit too.
And nobody can fault either one of them for being upset at the situation, whether you're Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix Jr., but credit both of them for the way that they're handling things outwardly. Like, they can't be mad at each other for the situation that they got put in.
I don't think Stormy, I don't think anybody thought like Cousins was going to, take the low road on this one. Yeah. Like he's a stand-up guy. That doesn't mean he doesn't have his own feelings. I mean, again, like a huge part of this is, you imagine one employer tells you one thing could happen, and you go the other way because that one thing could happen, and you're not aware that that one thing could happen with your new employer, and then a few weeks into your new job, that thing does happen. You might have your own feelings on it too. So I think human nature, just from the standpoint of human nature, there's no question that Kirk Cousins has his own feelings about how all this went. But, he's taken the high road here. And, I think the same way Aaron Rodgers didn't take it out on Jordan Love when everything transpired in Green Bay in 2020. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to take any of this out on Michael Penix.
Let's shift to the Raiders. It was my understanding that they said it was a coin flip between Brock Bowers and someone else. What have you heard about what happened inside that Raider draft room?
Well, Michael, I think that their plan A was actually Penix, and one thing I have heard is that, their move to plan B was to go with, their move to plan B was a result of the quarterbacks coming off the board the way that they did. Now, I don't know if they would have liked Nix or McCarthy enough to take them, but, I certainly think if Penix had been there for 13, that would have been the pick. And so with 6 quarterbacks off the board in the first 12 picks, they pivot. And I do think Brock Bowers was the overwhelming choice in the room. I think it was Terry and Arnold. I can't remember if it was Arnold or Quinion Mitchell. Was it Arnold?
Yep.
Stormy, is that right?
Correct.
I think it was Terry and Arnold.
Yeah, Arnold, yep.
It was, yeah. So I think he's the one who said it would have been a coin flip, and then a coach told him that. And then, Antonio Pierce said he hadn't talked to Arnold. So, in true Raider fashion, there's a little bit of a mess left behind. But I do think that Telesco and the scouting staff really, they were in on Brock Bowers because they felt like they were uniquely positioned to take him in as a player. The one thing that's interesting about him, and, Michael, you could probably dive into this a little bit more on the football end of things, is that he, as great a player as he was at Georgia, you need to have a plan for him because he's not a traditional tight end. So you almost have to have a traditional tight end to use him correctly. Well, the Raiders are one team that actually does have that, and Michael Mayer, and having Mayer on board as their traditional inline wide tight end, enabled them to take a swing here on a pretty special athlete in Brock Bowers.
You're also very...
no question. I think he's Michael. More... Go ahead, Storm. Well, he's more of the F tight end is all I was going to say. I agree with Albert. Go ahead.
Well, you're also very close, obviously, Albert, with the Patriots organization. You know that inside and out very, very well. They are one of just two teams going into the season that are underdogs in every single game. New head coach, new situation, bring in a young quarterback in Drake May. What's your understanding of the situation? Because Mayo comes out and says Drake May's got a lot of work to do. That we know. I think everybody knew going in. But is there a chance you think we could see him starting this year like we've seen so many rookie quarterbacks in the past?
Yeah, I think the number is, and you can look back at this, I think the number is 48 quarterbacks have been taken in the first round in the last 16 draft cycles, and only 2 didn't start at least one game their rookie year. One was Jordan Love. The other one was Jake Locker. Mahomes waited till week 17 to start a game, but all 3 of those guys had established guys ahead of him. Was Matt Hasselbeck in front of Jake Locker, Alex Smith in front of Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers in front of Jordan Love. So history tells us it's almost inevitable that Drake May is going to start a game at some point. Now, I don't think the plan is for him to start right now. They view him as being pretty raw. He needs to be rebuilt in certain ways. They need to clean up a lot of stuff with his feet. Obviously, I think there's some accuracy issues that metastasized from some of the things that were going on around him in North Carolina last year. So, part of Gerard's whole idea in putting a staff together was to put together some quarterback infrastructure. They felt like they did that in bringing in Alex Van Pelt and Ben McAdoo and T.C. McCartney. And so I think, it's almost like this isn't a competition. You know what I mean? It's to me, it's like more like Drake May competing against himself. I don't think that they want to risk messing up his development just to throw him out there and get game reps. So this isn't so much Drake May against Jacoby Brissett as Drake May kind of fighting to convince the coaches there that he's ready to get into a game, and all the work that they've done won't come undone if he does get in the game.
Yeah, and the reality of it is Albert, if they don't start fast, you don't think, because you look at their schedule, it's not an easy schedule, especially where they are. You don't think eventually they'll have to put him in?
Yeah, and that's, as it takes great discipline not to, because you guys know, right? Like everybody up here in New England is all for redshirting him now. And I think you guys both know exactly what will happen if they're 0-5 or 2-6, which is people screaming from the rooftops, why don't you just throw the kid in there? And, again, history shows us that teams almost always buckle to that pressure for one reason or another, whether there's pressure from ownership, empty seats. You get to November 1st, there are 20,000 empty seats, Jacoby Brissett's on the field. What do you think the narrative up here is going to be? It's going to be, why don't you just get Drake May the reps, even if that's not what's best for the kid? And so, I think, as much as it has to do with Drake May and his development, like I said, it's also having the right situation for him. If you're constantly playing from behind, if you're constantly in 3rd and long, it's going to create a situation where bad habits can be reinforced.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Bonatoni, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you like watching and listening to VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, why haven't you checked out VSiN.com, your one-stop shop for all things betting content, in addition to everything that you hear on our shows each and every day? Best bets from our show hosts, guests, and experts, all logged there on the website. Updated betting splits for each and every games, as well as exclusive articles, including one from our guy Michael Lombardi that came out today. He does a weekly column, this one breaking down some interesting spots on the NFL following yesterday's schedule release. Visit VSiN.com today. Speaking of VSiN.com, someone who does wonderful write-ups on a regular basis, VSiN host here at the network of VSiN Tonight each and every weekday, Matt Youmans joins us now on the Progressive Guest Line. And we'll talk schedule release in a minute, Matt, but I want to start with the PGA Championship because Rory McIlroy, 5 under right now. Scotty Scheffler, I believe, about to get underway. Those are the 2 favorites coming in. And Xander Schauffele in the lead right now with a first round 9 under. My guy from San Diego State is always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Is this a good or a bad omen that he got off to a nice start here?
First of all, Michael Lombardi always breaking down tape, writing books, writing columns. The guy's a workhorse. He never stops.
It's true.
As far as Xander Schauffele, I wonder, were you calling Xander Schauffele your guy from San Diego State on Sunday when he turned a 2-shot lead into a 7-shot deficit in about an hour? One thing, I used to like Schauffele, and I used to bet him about 2.5 years ago. I gave up because certain players just don't have that winning mentality. They don't have the killer instinct, or they choke under pressure. And Schauffele was one of those guys. And so I basically stopped betting him. You can bet him top 10. He's a really solid contender, a guy who's going to finish top 10. He doesn't win many tournaments, and Sunday was the latest example of that. You know, I'm not going to – hate's a strong word, but my disdain, my dislike for Xander Schauffele in these tournaments is getting pretty intense because he's a front runner. He gets out the leads, plays well. Probably should have bet him first-round leader. But then on Saturday, Sunday, he backpedals. He doesn't do what's necessary to win a tournament. I can tell you one thing. All the guys chasing Schauffele are not too concerned. They know he's not going to run away with this tournament. So I've got a lot of action on this golf tournament, including guys like Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, a few others. I'm not concerned that Xander's going to run away with this thing.
Hey, Matt, is the course, I mean, this is an impressive score, 62.
Sure.
Is the course that easy, or was it just the weather? Was it he just had a hot putter today? Like, are we going to expect to see scores in the 60s for 4 rounds?
You know, the weather's going to get a little bit worse. I think it's going to rain on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Might get a little windy. Today, the scoring conditions are perfect because Schauffele got out there. The course was softened up. These guys are pin hunting. I don't know if you're watching as we're speaking right now, but Scotty Scheffler just knocked one. He just holed one from about 150 yards out in the fairway. And, you know, these guys are able to flag hunt today. It's target practice out there. The course is not playing anywhere near as tough as a lot of people thought it would be. So, yeah, that's a hell of an impressive score by Schauffele. I think you're going to see a lot of guys go low here in the afternoon, too. So, it's not going to be the typical PGA where, you know, struggling to make par is sometimes a good score. It looks like this course is going to maybe lay down for these guys a lot more than we expected.
Of course Scheffler did that. The crying baby's not keeping him up too late just yet. And the divorce certainly isn't bothering Rory McIlroy out there with what he's done last event into this one. You mentioned a couple of the guys that you do have bets on, Brooks Koepka, John Rahm. For somebody who maybe didn't get into the tournament pre-flop, are there things that you can be looking at to try to get involved in tournament? What are some angles you would suggest?
You know, the adjusted odds are going to be posted after the first round tonight. And we're going to talk about that on our show later tonight because there's a lot to happen yet this afternoon. You could bet live right now and take Scotty Scheffler at 5-1, or, you know, you could, there's nothing I see right now I would recommend, but as I watch this more this afternoon and tonight, Wes Reynolds and I will talk about it on our show, and hopefully also on VSiN.com, we're going to post some updates and betting strategies after each round. So we can talk about that a little bit more after today's round.
Bless you, Michael. Let's turn the page here, Matt.
Thank you, Stormy.
Yeah.
Let's turn the page to a little NFL schedule release here real quickly. When all of the news broke down yesterday and you kind of get the lay of the land for what teams are going to play who when, was there any team that changed your opinion for them, whether it be on a win total or an approach early in the season that stood out to you?
I don't know if anything changed my opinion that much, but I thought there were a lot of interesting things with the schedule. I know Michael wrote about some of the stuff today. And Brent Musburger was on with us last night to react to the schedule too, and Brent brought up a good point about the Steelers and their brutal final 8 weeks. The Steelers they better get off to a fast start because it's going to be tough on the Steelers to have a fast finish with that schedule in the final 8 weeks. One thing I thought was interesting was the Bears and the Steelers have no division games in the first 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't think a schedule should ever be set up that way. That means the Bears and the Steelers are going to have 6 of their last 8 games in the division. Not playing a division game until week 11 is something I don't think should happen. I'll say this, Stormy and Michael, I think the 49ers actually got kind of a bad deal from the schedule maker. Let's put it that way. The 49ers are going to play 4 teams that are off bye weeks before they play San Francisco. That means 49ers are going to be at a rest disadvantage against the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and the Bills. All four teams have a bye the week before playing San Francisco. Also, the Niners have back-to-back road games at Green Bay and Buffalo, late November, early December. I think the schedule looks more difficult. The schedule layout looks more difficult for the 49ers after yesterday's schedule release. Also, I look for things like 3 straight road games. The Bills, the Browns, the Bears, the Vikings all have 3 straight road games. That's going to be a negative scheduling dynamic for those teams. A lot of times what you want to do in NFL season win totals too is you want to look to play over the low numbers. And the Patriots have the lowest number on the board at 4.5. But man, after I looked at the schedule last night, I'm not all that bullish. I'm betting the Patriots over unless something changes my mind this summer. One team I am going to take a look at is the Bears. And there's a book out there with a 9, under 9 at even money. Most places have it 8.5, shaded over. I think the Bears have one of the league's easiest schedules. But when you look at it on paper, that doesn't mean it's going to play out the same way when you get to the season. I know a lot of people are looking at, well, they got home games against the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Patriots. All those teams look like they're going to be automatic wins for the Bears. I don't think you can necessarily think that way. The Panthers are the only team, when I look at schedules, I say, well, that's going to be a win. That's going to be a win because the Panthers are pathetic. The rest of these teams, Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, have a chance, I think, to be pretty good or better than expectations. So those are just some of the things I looked at when the schedule came out last night.
Matt, so I've been asking everybody who's going to have the first pick in next year's draft. Give me your 4 teams who are potential to be in the first, because if you're going to play Survivor, you want to play teams that aren't going to win, right? So you've already mentioned Carolina. Who are your other 3 teams?
Brent said last night he's already got his Survivor pick for Week 1. He's playing the Bengals over the Patriots, right? So,
of course,
with the Patriots schedule, I think it is going to be hard for that team not to be one of the bottom 4 in the league, and they got to figure out the quarterback situation anyway. So even though I'm probably not as down on the Patriots as some people, I think it's going to be challenging there. So the Panthers, the Patriots, I'm going to say let's go. Yeah, I'm not really sure who the other 2 worst teams are going to be right now. I'm not going to go out on a limb on that yet. I'm going to have to study this one a little bit more. I think the Panthers and the Patriots are 2 pretty good bets to be at the bottom. And, a lot of people would say the Arizona Cardinals too, but I think the Cardinals actually have a chance to be decent. I like the NFC West. I think those teams are actually closing the gap on the 49ers a little bit.
Yeah, I know Michael's pretty high on the Seattle Seahawks. He likes the Rams. The Cardinals are getting better. I would throw the Giants in as one of the potential worst teams. That's one that Michael and I have talked about a good bit. But as far as Week 1 goes, just to close things out here, Matt, and those Survivor ones, do you think that Patriots-Bengals is going to be potentially the most played, or is there another one, at least at first blush, that stood out to you?
Yeah, we did talk about that a little bit last night because that Bengals play is going to be the most popular in Survivor. I think you could just write that down in pen right now, not pencil. It's going to be Bengals. I'll tell you a sneaky, good Survivor play. I don't know if it's sneaky. By the time we get there, it might be pretty popular. I don't necessarily like the team a lot, but the Saints over the Panthers in Week 1, because when are you really going to want to use the Saints again?
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't, and I think a lot of contestants are going to want to pick on the Carolina Panthers.
You're the man, Matt. Thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate you.
Okay,
great job, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, he talked, Michael, about what a hardworking guy you are here at VSiN. Same thing for Matt. He is up late every night.
He doesn't sleep.
He's unbelievable.
I sleep. This guy doesn't sleep. I mean, he doesn't sleep. I mean, he's just throwing shade at me. That guy is always up.
Check him and Wes Reynolds out tonight on VSiN tonight. We'll be right back.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The NBA playoffs are heating up, and so is the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers who bet $5 get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use our code VSiN, VSIN, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Speaking of the NBA, that's where we're going to go with our pro tip of the day here as well, Michael. We do these pro tips each and every day on the show. Every show on the network does them. They're searchable on VSiN.com by sport and by show. But today, talking about the Denver Nuggets, who seem to have flipped a switch after going down 0-2 at home against the Timberwolves. We talked to Mike Somich earlier in the show where he said it feels like the Nuggets have the Timberwolves figured out. And I'll double down on that if you're looking to make an NBA title bet right now, you're not fully sold on the Boston Celtics as a odds-on minus 135 number right now. If the Denver Nuggets win tonight, which they are a 2-point underdog on the road, plus 110 on the money line, if they win tonight, this is the lowest number that you're going to get on them to win a championship at plus 255.
No question. And I think what you said earlier about Mike Somich said about having them figured out, it was pretty obvious in the stats, right? We know Minnesota's really good defensively. And when they lost game 4 in Minnesota, they were unable to really contain the Denver offense. And then it got worse again. So it wasn't like you would think they were going to round it back out and play better defense. They didn't. The shooting percentages for Denver went up. Now, I understand they were playing home, but still, I think Mike Somich is right. They have them figured out.
Again, a 2-point spread tonight. Total in the game, 205. VSiN pro tips available each and every day at VSiN.com. Now it's time to wrap up the show on a high note. Let's roll that no way, no doubt open.
Do you disagree with these takes?
No way.
No way. Or do you approve?
Oh, no doubts. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. No diggity, no doubt.
It's time to ask Michael Lombardi, no way or no doubt.
All right, let's see where Michael is on board and where he's got a no way for us. We'll see. We're starting with a little salary conversation. Last offseason, we saw the average annual value in the highest paid salaries go up, and away, the record being broken 4 times. We saw Kyler Murray, who was the highest. Jalen Hurts gets his deal. Lamar Jackson gets his deal. Justin Herbert, finally Joe Burrow, who now sets the standard at $55 million in average annual value. But even Jared Goff is out here getting over 50 with guys like Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott still upon us. Could we see someone leapfrog Burrow in the short term? No way or no doubt, Michael. Joe Burrow's NFL record, $55 million salary, will be broken this offseason.
No way, because, look, Mahomes is below him. And as long as Mahomes stays below him, then you really can't make the case, right? Mahomes is taking less for his team. And so he's doing something really well. So I can't see that. Now, Dak will try, and Dak would probably be the one who has no doubt that he'll get more, because Dak's not settling for a penny less. Dak is like Kirk Cousins. He's not leaving a chip on the table. So right now, I would say no way somebody's going to get ahead of Burrow, because Burrow and has been to a Super Bowl, also because Mahomes is below Burrow.
And Jerry Jones is probably like, well, Dak, even Jared Goff's getting farther in the playoffs than we are. Just put that out there. Every year, Michael, in this offseason.
Just throw it.
Just saying. See, that's another segment we need to add to the show still. We're waiting. We'll get the open made. Just saying.
Just saying.
Every year in the offseason as well, we see players that are skipping offseason workouts. They're holding out for contract reasons. No way or no doubt, big-name players vying for new contracts are hurting their teams by skipping these offseason workouts.
No way. I mean, it's probably better they're not in there as long as they stay in shape and they work. I mean, like if they're in there, Hayward's in Pittsburgh, he's just not doing anything on the field. That's fine. I mean, these guys are on the field way too much as it is. The season's getting longer and longer and longer. You don't want to wear your team out. What you want to do is condition them. You want them to be in the weight room. You want them to be, getting themselves in condition to handle the rigors of the NFL season. But in terms of where you line up, how you play in the defense or the offense, you can catch up to that pretty quickly.
So at what point does it start mattering? For example, like we remember Deebo Samuel a couple years when he was holding out into the preseason, and he said that even the mental game of it really messed him up as a player. So it's not just the team impact, but the personal impact. At what point does it become a hindrance?
I think it definitely becomes an hindrance at training camp, right?
Okay.
Because you're trying to bond the team. You can't go 2-a-days anymore, so you're only doing 1-a-day. You want to make sure that your best players are getting the reps. You want to make sure that they're in condition. You need to wear spikes. You need to play on the grass. You need to play football to be good at football. And if you just show up in week 1 like Josh Jacobs did, when have they ever had good years when guys just show up right there right before the season starts? It's very challenging and difficult.
Let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I've heard many make the argument because Mike Tomlin and the Steelers owe Russell Wilson nothing. They are paying him next to nothing, and Justin Fields is sitting there waiting in the wings. That the leash could be very short for Russ and a schedule that looks pretty daunting, toughest in the NFL right now. If Christmas Day is the target, Michael, no way or no doubt, Russell Wilson will still be the Steelers quarterback under center to take off the Chiefs on Christmas.
Oh, this is a hard one. No way I think he'll be the starting quarterback Christmas Day. This one's a hard one for me. I can go either way here. I'll go no doubt he will be because, look, we do know this about Mike Tomlin. Mike is very, look, how long was he going to stick with Kenny Pickett? Right? How long did he stick with Kenny? He stuck with Kenny Pickett a while, a lot longer than many would have. I think to me, obviously it's hard to predict if a guy's going to play well or not, but Wilson within this Arthur Smith offense, I think certainly could. Now, the cries are going to come from all over. Danny O at ESPN, they're all going to start coming out of the woodwork. Justin Fields has to play. You can't leave that talent on the sideline. We're going to hear that, right? I mean, get ready. That's week 2 of the preseason. You can't leave that talent on the sideline, right? So there's a movement out there for him to play. There's no question.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question. Again, if you missed it, the Steelers' win total remained 8.5 after their challenging schedule was released, but the juice went from -120 to the over to +125. Another quarterback situation worth monitoring is in Minnesota. The Vikings signed Sam Darnold to a 1-year, $10 million deal. But Kevin O'Connell drafted his guy in J.J. McCarthy as well. So no way or no doubt, the Darnold-McCarthy quarterback battle will be the closest of any entering this offseason.
I think that's no doubt. That's right. There's no doubt. I think, to me, if McCarthy shows the ability to retain and understand what's going on, why waste any time? You've got Darnold there to be the backup. If he feels like you can go handle it and he can run the offense and not hinder what you're doing and get the ball to the right players, I think he ends up being the starter. Why waste any moment if he's ready? Whereas what we're saying about Drake May is Drake May needs, in the immortal words of Dom Neely, our former scout, he needs refinement, which is a better term for he needs a lot of coaching, right? He needs coaching, and he needs fundamentals and techniques and all that. McCarthy doesn't quite need that. McCarthy needs the experience. But there's a difference between having experience and having expertise. Once he becomes an expert of the offense, I think that takes over the experience.
Okay. J.J. McCarthy, by the way, of these quarterbacks potentially to start, he's the shortest shot of anyone to go from backup to QB1, +115. Sam Darnold is still an odds-on -140 favorite to be the QB1 out of camp. But let's go to Drake May, Michael. No way or no doubt the former UNC Tar Heel will start at least half of the Patriots games this season.
No way he starts half, but he will start some.
Okay.
No way he will start half, but he will, because what I asked Matt Humans and what I've tried to, what I was talking with what we talked about with Albert Breer is, at some point when the season's lost, you might as well give them some reps, much like when the season was lost for the Super Bowl winning franchise, the Atlanta Falcons. They put Desmond Ridder in the last 4 games of the year. Remember that? To give him some reps to see where they were. I suspect that'll be the case here. They'll have to do something like that.
And the stat that Albert Breer dropped, he said of the 48 first-round quarterbacks that have been taken in the last handful of years, only 2 of them have ultimately not had at least one game that they played in or during their rookie season. So I think that's certainly in the cards for Drake May, who it's going to be like, that's the guy that's going to be their quarterback of the future. And it makes sense that if your team is bad and you're in a position late in the season to give him a little bit of that opportunity, right?
Yeah, no question. So you give him a little bit, but you're not counting the season on him, because here's the problem is he's not ready to be the starter, and the team wants somebody to help him win games. And Brissett can handle that, right? And so once he catches up or once the season's lost, then you'll put him in there. But until that point, I think it's a little bit premature. And I don't think that's the halfway point either, Stormy. I think it's going to happen later in the year.
And to Albert's point earlier, too, you don't want to put your future quarterback in a position to get ruined prematurely, right? We talk so much in the NFL about young quarterbacks getting ruined more than they are developed, and he's got a lot of development on the way. That's it for us today on the Lombardi Line. Check us out same time, same place tomorrow. Sharp Money coming up next, as well as Pablo Torre on DraftKings.